On October 2, 1905, workers at Portsmouth Dockyard laid the keel of a warship that would instantly render every navy on Earth obsolete, including Britain's own. HMS Dreadnought, completed in just 366 days, embodied revolutionary technologies that transformed naval warfare, triggered an unprecedented arms race, and brought Europe closer to catastrophic war. Yet, in a twist of supreme irony, this revolutionary killing machine's only confirmed kill came not from her 10 massive 12-inch guns, but from ramming a German submarine. Her story encompasses technological genius, political intrigue, the larger-than-life personality of Admiral Jackie Fisher, and consequences that shaped the 20th century. The Dreadnought was born from the relentless ambition of one man, Admiral Sir John Arbuthnot, Jackie Fisher. Born in Ceylon in 1841, Fisher entered the Royal Navy at 13, sponsored by Admiral Sir William Parker, the last of Nelson's captains. His entrance exam consisted of writing out the Lord's Prayer and jumping naked over a chair. He fainted on his first day after witnessing 8 men flogged. Fisher rose to become Britain's most controversial and transformative naval leader. Standing 5 feet 7 inches with a round face and yellow-tinged skin from near-fatal dysentery, he possessed what contemporaries described as a fixed and compelling gaze and an intensity that once prompted King Edward VII to ask him to stop shaking his fist in the royal face. His famous aphorisms revealed his character: "Hit first, hit hard, keep hitting, and anyone who opposes me I crush, delivered while glaring fiercely at his audience. When Fisher became First Sea Lord on October 20th, 1904, he arrived with a sketch design for a revolutionary battleship already in his pocket. He immediately established the Committee on Designs, handpicking supporters including Captain John Jellicoe, future commander at Jutland, and Captain Reginald Bacon, whom Fisher called the cleverest officer in the Navy. Critics noted Fisher had loaded the dice, but that was precisely his intention. Fisher's vision drew from hard lessons. The Battle of Tsushima in May 1905, where Japan annihilated the Russian fleet, proved that long-range gunnery with heavy guns was decisive. British observer Captain William Pakenham reported, "12-inch gunfire demonstrated hitting power and accuracy, whilst 10-inch shells passed unnoticed." Fisher understood that speed and firepower would dominate future naval warfare. The all-big-gun concept solved a fundamental problem that plagued pre-dreadnought battleships. Ships like HMS King Edward VII carried a bewildering array of weapons: 4 12-inch guns, 4 9.2-inch intermediate guns, 10 6-inch secondaries, plus numerous smaller pieces. At combat ranges exceeding 6,000 yards, gunnery officers couldn't distinguish shell splashes from 12-inch and 9.2-inch guns, making accurate range corrections impossible. The solution was elegant: eliminate the intermediate battery entirely. Dreadnought's specifications represented a quantum leap. She carried 10 12-inch Mark X guns in 5 twin turrets versus 4 12-inch on pre-dreadnoughts. Her broadside weight was 6,800 pounds of shells versus 3,400 pounds from existing battleships. Speed was 21 knots from revolutionary Parsons steam turbines versus 18 knots for conventional ships. Displacement was 18,120 tons normal, 20,730 tons at deep load. Belt armor was 11 inches of Krupp cemented steel. The steam turbines represented an enormous gamble. No battleship had ever used them. Charles Parsons had demonstrated his invention in 1897 by crashing Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee Naval Review with his yacht Turbinia, racing through the assembled warships at 34 knots while picket boats failed to catch him. The turbines saved 1,100 tons over reciprocating engines, weight redirected to guns and armor, while delivering quieter operation, reduced vibration, and lower maintenance requirements. Fisher's committee chose turbines on January 18, 1905. The gamble paid off spectacularly. During trials on October 9, 1906, Dreadnought achieved 21.6 knots from 27,018 horsepower, exceeding specifications. The construction timeline was deliberately theatrical, a message to rival powers. Material was stockpiled for months before the formal keel laying. Approximately 6,000 man-weeks of prefabrication work occurred before October 2, 1905. Portsmouth Dockyard, screened from prying eyes, worked under brutal conditions. 1,100 workers initially, rising to 3,000, laboring 69-hour, 6-day weeks with only 30-minute lunch breaks. King Edward VII launched Dreadnought on February 10, 1906, christening her with Australian sparkling wine, which required multiple blows to shatter. The court was in mourning for Queen Alexandra's father, muting the celebration, but the crowds were enormous and their enthusiasm unbounded. By October 3, 1906, 1 year and 1 day after keel laying, Dreadnought went to sea. She commissioned on December 11, 1906. The construction cost approximately £1.78 million, roughly £200 million today. But the real cost was strategic. Britain had just rendered her own fleet of approximately 50 pre-dreadnought battleships obsolete overnight. Kaiser Wilhelm II, Queen Victoria's eldest grandson, harbored a complicated obsession with British naval power. "When I was a little boy, I admired the proud British ships," he wrote. "There awoke in me the will to build ships of my own like these someday." His Germany sought its place in the sun, a global empire requiring naval strength. Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz, State Secretary for the Navy from 1897, became the architect of German expansion. His risk theory calculated that Germany didn't need to match Britain ship for ship, merely threaten damage severe enough to endanger British dominance. 5 fleet acts between 1898 and 1912 transformed German naval power, with the Second Naval Law of 1900 explicitly targeting Britain. Britain's response rested on the two-power standard. Established in the 1889 Naval Defense Act, the Royal Navy would maintain strength equal to the next 2 largest navies combined. By 1905, this principle faced unprecedented pressure from German expansion and the costs of new technologies. Lord Selborne, First Lord of the Admiralty, warned the Cabinet in October 1902, "The more the composition of the new German fleet is examined, the clearer it becomes that it is designed for a possible conflict with the British fleet." Ambassador Sir Francis Bertie put it bluntly, "The Germans aim to push us into the water and steal our clothes." Fisher's strategic gamble rested on Britain's industrial capacity. If the battleship revolution was inevitable, and Tsushima suggested it was, Britain could outbuild any rival. The 366-day construction proved the point. Dreadnought's launch triggered exactly the naval race critics feared. Germany responded with the Nassau-class, 4 ships laid down in 1907 to 1908, carrying 12 11-inch guns. Though sometimes portrayed as a panic response, German designers had actually been exploring all big gun concepts since 1903. The Nassau ships retained inferior triple expansion engines, Tirpitz-resisted turbines, making them 2 knots slower than their British counterparts. Germany accelerated construction through subsequent fleet acts, producing successively more powerful classes: Helgoland, first German 12-inch guns; Kaiser, first German turbines; Koenig, and finally the Bayern class with 15-inch weapons. The American controversy adds intrigue to the narrative. USS South Carolina was designed before Dreadnought, the plans essentially complete by late June 1905, and Congress authorized construction on March 3, 1905, 7 months before Dreadnought's keel laying. The Americans even introduced super-firing turrets, one elevated to fire over another, which became standard on all subsequent battleships. But leisurely American construction meant South Carolina didn't commission until March 1910, 4 years after Dreadnought entered service. The revolution bears Dreadnought's name because Britain finished first. The most remarkable arms race erupted in South America. In 1907, Brazil ordered 3 dreadnoughts from Britain, flush with coffee and rubber wealth. Argentina's foreign minister warned that any one of the new Brazilian vessels could destroy the entire Argentine and Chilean fleets. Argentina responded by ordering ships from America, Chile ordered from Britain. The race drove the 3 participants nearly into insolvency. By 1909, Britain faced a political crisis over naval spending. Intelligence reports, some fabricated by arms manufacturers, suggested Germany was secretly accelerating construction. The Dreadnought gap sparked public panic. The Liberal cabinet divided bitterly. David Lloyd George and Winston Churchill, then at the Board of Trade, championed social reform over naval expenditure. First Lord Reginald McKenna demanded 6 new dreadnoughts, economists offered 4. A conservative MP coined the slogan that echoed through music halls, "We want 8 and we won't wait." Churchill later delivered the perfect quip, "The Admiralty had demanded 6 ships, the economists offered 4, and we finally compromised on 8. The 8-ship program went ahead, funded by Lloyd George's People's Budget of April 1909, which the House of Lords rejected, triggering a constitutional crisis. Post-war revelations showed German construction had been vastly exaggerated. They had only 9 dreadnoughts by 1912, not the 25 some claimed. 2 dreadnoughts being built in Britain for the Ottoman Empire created one of history's consequential seizures. Reshadieh and Sultan Osman Evel, the latter carrying an extraordinary 14 12-inch guns and 7 turrets, more than any dreadnought ever built, were nearly complete when war loomed. On July 29, 1914, Winston Churchill ordered the Royal Navy to seize both ships. Turkish sailors who had arrived at Newcastle to take possession were turned away at gunpoint. Ottoman newspapers claimed the ships had been funded by public donations from across the empire. The seizure created enormous outrage and helped push the Ottoman Empire toward Germany, which shrewdly gifted the battlecruiser Goeben to replace the stolen vessels. When war came, Dreadnought served as flagship of the 4th Battle Squadron at Scapa Flow. Her service proved anticlimactic, but included one extraordinary moment. On March 18, 1915, the Grand Fleet was returning to base when German submarine U-29 appeared. Her commander was Kapitänleutnant Otto Weddigen, Germany's greatest submarine ace. On September 22, 1914, Weddigen's U-9 had sunk 3 British armored cruisers, Aboukir, Hogue, and Cressy, in less than 1 hour, killing 1,467 British sailors. He was the first naval officer of WWII to receive the Pour le Mérite. When U-29 fired a torpedo at HMS Neptune and missed, Dreadnought's officer of the watch spotted the periscope. Captain Alderson ordered full speed ahead. Dreadnought's 21,845-ton bulk sliced the 867-ton submarine in 2. As the bow section lurched above the surface, the number U-29 was clearly visible before she sank with all 32 hands. The irony is supreme. The revolutionary battleship designed to destroy enemy dreadnoughts with overwhelming firepower achieved her only confirmed kill by ramming a submarine. She never fired her 12-inch guns at an enemy surface ship. When congratulatory telegrams arrived, one famously read, "Bunga Bunga," referencing the 1910 Dreadnought hoax when Virginia Woolf and the Bloomsbury Group fooled the Navy into touring the ship while disguised as Abyssinian royalty. The Battle of Jutland on May 31 to June 1, 1916 was the climax of the Dreadnought era, the only full-scale clash between Dreadnought fleets. 58 Dreadnought battleships and battlecruisers engaged, with the British Grand Fleet's 28 Dreadnoughts facing Germany's 16. Dreadnought missed it entirely. She was refitting at Portsmouth from April 18 to June 22, 1916, directly overlapping the battle. Jutland proved devastating for British battlecruisers, whose design philosophy emphasized speed over protection. HMS Queen Mary exploded with nearly 1,300 dead, only 20 survivors. HMS Invincible, Fisher's revolutionary battlecruiser, was hit in her magazine and cut in 2, only 6 survivors from over 1,000 crew. German ships proved more resilient due to superior armor and damage control. The outcome was tactically ambiguous but strategically decisive. The German High Seas Fleet never again seriously threatened Allied supremacy. When ordered to make a final sortie in November 1918, German sailors mutinied. On November 21, 1918, Admiral Beatty received the fleet's surrender. After Jutland, Dreadnought was relegated to the Thames, defending against German shore bombardments with a force of pre-dreadnoughts. She fired her anti-aircraft guns at German aircraft heading for London, her only other combat action. Dreadnought paid off in August 1918, sold for scrap in May 1921 for £36,630, £2 10 shillings per ton. She was broken up at Inverkeithing, Scotland, in January 1923. No serious effort was made to preserve her. Britain was exhausted. The Washington Naval Treaty required scrapping older ships, and unlike HMS Victory, Dreadnought had never fought a decisive battle. her legacy proved more durable than steel. The term dreadnought entered common language. All subsequent battleships were called dreadnoughts, older ships retroactively labeled pre-dreadnoughts. Super-dreadnoughts with 13.5-inch guns followed from 1912. The magnificent Queen Elizabeth class with 15-inch guns and oil-fired boilers represented the culmination of Fisher's vision. The design philosophy persisted through World War II, culminating in giants like Japan's Yamato, 75,000 tons with 9 18-inch guns, over 3 times Dreadnought's displacement. The U.S. Iowa class served until the 1990s, firing cruise missiles and 16-inch guns in Desert Storm. Yet Dreadnought's descendants ultimately followed her into obsolescence. Pearl Harbor and Taranto demonstrated that aircraft could sink battleships at anchor. HMS Ark Royal's torpedo planes crippled Bismarck. Both Yamato and Musashi fell to carrier aircraft. HMS Vanguard, launched in 1946, was the last battleship ever built. The ship that started it all embodied contradictions. She was simultaneously a triumph of British engineering and a strategic gamble that negated decades of naval investment. She triggered an arms race that consumed vast resources, heightened international tensions, and helped make the catastrophe of 1914 possible. Yet Britain never lost its lead in battleships. Fisher's coat of arms, adopted when he was ennobled in 1909, bore the motto, "Fear God and dread naught." He died in July 1920, his coffin drawn through London by bluejackets with 6 admirals as pallbearers. His ashes were placed in his wife's grave at Kilverstone, overlooking the figurehead of his first seagoing ship, HMS Calcutta, where a 13-year-old boy had fainted at the sight of flogging. Dreadnought herself lasted only 3 years longer, but her name lives on. Britain's first nuclear submarine was HMS Dreadnought, 1960, and the new Trident missile submarine class will carry the name into the future. A guitar body shape is named for her. A giant dinosaur genus, Dreadnoughtus, fear nothing, honors her supposed invulnerability. The revolution she embodied transformed not just naval warfare but the nature of great power competition itself. As one historian noted, the notion that a warship could go from being world-class to obsolete in a decade is almost entirely alien to modern sensibilities. Yet Dreadnought lived that trajectory, from the most powerful weapon on the planet to scrap metal in 17 years. Her story remains relevant because the dynamics she represented, technological disruption, arms race psychology, the interplay of innovation and security, continue shaping our world. Fisher's gamble paid off in one sense. Britain maintained naval supremacy through 2 world wars, but the arms race he accelerated contributed to the catastrophe that killed millions and ended the era of European dominance. At commissioning, Dreadnought was the most powerful weapon on Earth. At scrapping, she was merely one obsolete battleship among many. Between those moments lies one of history's most consequential naval revolutions.